Welcome to the Awaken on Purpose podcast, where each week I share insight, inspiration, and advice for quantum leaping into new levels of expansion in your purpose and mission as a visionary leader and wayshower. You'll also hear from other new paradigm leaders who share their inspirational stories and wisdom. If you're passionate about embodying your highest destiny and leading others through this great awakening into the next golden age, this show is for you. Hey everyone, I'm super overjoyed to welcome as a guest to the show today, Rachel Merrill. She is the author of I Sang Anyway, a stepmom spiritual memoir of healing. She's passionate about human potential. She is a Reiki master, certified holistic life coach, witch, singer, writer, wife, mom, and stepmom. Welcome, Rachel.
Thank you. It's such an honor to be here. Thank you, Jennifer.
Oh, thanks. I'm honored to have you too. And I love your first name as well. It's actually the name of my sister.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Very
Rachel's
nice.
like not a super common name. So
See, we're family already.
there you go. There you go. So Rachel, I'd love to dive right in and just love to hear more about how did you feel called to align with this path? What were you doing before and how you got to where you are now?
Sure. So, as you mentioned, I'm the author of I Sang Anyway. And since I was about probably 12 years old, I really wanted to be a published author. I remember I prayed about it. I was raised in a Christian household, and I was really believing that someday, somehow it would happen for me. And then as I got older, as I explained in the book, my beliefs were kind of called into question. And the reason was because my friend, who was only 36 at the time, she passed away. And we had gone to church together. Her daughter and my son had gone to daycare together. And then what happened was, after she passed away suddenly and unexpectedly, I felt that she was trying to communicate with me through different signs. And through the different signs, I felt that she was kind of encouraging me to go down a different type of spiritual path than I had been raised to go down. And I decided to go to a crystal shop. The owner of the crystal shop happened to be someone who used to work with my friend. She was someone I had met at my friend's funeral. And I decided to become a Reiki master. I studied a lot of online courses. But one thing that really struck me was that since my childhood, I realized that I have always had different elements of being a witch that I didn't realize until probably this past year. And so I would often be found out in the woods by my house, playing in nature, looking for fairies. I would make these boxes that now I know that witches use them for spells, but I would cut out magazine pictures and put candles in it and all these different kinds of things into this box. And I called it a dream box at the time. Um, and I remember looking at flowers and thinking, what can I make from the flowers? And just different different ways of thinking that other kids my age in North Dakota at the time, they didn't talk that way, except for maybe one of my friends. She believed in spiritual things. But so I was going on my spiritual journey, and I have gone through some traumatic things, which I detail in the book. And then 2020 hit. It was such a startling year. And it wasn't just the pandemic, it was an actual traumatic incident that happened in my family. I am remarried. I'm a stepmom. I have a stepson and a stepdaughter, and then my son from my previous marriage. And I really detail in I Sang Anyway about going through this traumatic event, and I'll give you just a little peek into some of what I was dealing with. Um, I won't tell you everything, but one thing that happened was that the mother of my stepdaughter, she coached her to make a false allegation of rape against my son. And that ended up spiraling a lot of things in our lives out of control. So I bring you through this feeling of being out of control and really searching and reading books and like, how do I not judge the mother of my stepdaughter, and how do I forgive her? How do I get through this? How do I let go of my extremely toxic anger, because I was so very angry. And all of that is to say, it reminds me of some of the state of the world now, and why I think it will be so helpful for people to read my book, that not only is it my personal story, but every chapter has healing wisdom and questions for reflection. So you can apply it to your own life, and you can, in all this sort of like cacophony of distractions everywhere, you can go into your true nature, listen to your true voice, find your self-love and compassion. And then you will know if it's resonating in love, if that is the right path for you, if that is true for you. And you won't have to rely on the news or what someone maybe told you that doesn't resonate with you. It all comes back to the path of love. And it may sound cliche, but it really is like, what resonates with love for you, that is true for you.
No, it doesn't sound cliche at all. I mean, yes, love is become some type of like a buzzword, right? Love is the answer, love this, love that. And I think some people do become kind of immune to that, but there
Mhm.
is so much truth in what you're saying. And I love that you also bring up that each of our truths can be different, right?
Yes, exactly. And another um, point that I really emphasize in I Sang Anyway is the importance of remembering that each of us is a healing warrior, that we can get up every day and choose to show up, even every hour, choosing to show up and fighting for a life that we do want to live instead of against what we don't want to live. And what is that? What does that vision look like? What is our vision of the world we do want to live in? And how can we come together to create that? Because we are co-creators. And I think that sometimes it may seem that we forget our personal power, but we are not alone, and we don't have to do this difficult journey of being a human. We don't have to do this alone.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be as difficult, right? Like there's
Yeah,
always going to be polarity because that's part of the experience. This is essentially like an earth school, But
exactly.
in my experience, it's always been our own resistance, our ego's resistance to something that causes, that struggle, so to speak.
That's right. And that is exactly what I went through in my journey of uncovering that I am a witch. I struggled against it for a long time because I was raised in such a Christian household where I was taught that it was evil. And I read books that would say things like, oh, in the Salem witch trials, these witches were evil and they were convulsing and doing these terrible things. But then when you educate yourself and you see that actually a lot of religions use things that are in witchcraft, and that witchcraft is actually a celebration of nature and connection to the earth, and it's so healing, then you can find the healing power of witchcraft and the healing of community. And when I stopped pretending to be someone that I wasn't,
Yeah.
then my life became so much easier because I was honoring my truth.
I know a lot of people struggle with that, even if, if they aren't called to embody being a witch, they may have
Mhm.
other intuitive gifts
Yeah.
that they're afraid to bring forward, because also in many religions, but definitely Christianity, there are some verses from the Bible that are widely misinterpreted in terms of what it means to have those gifts. When Jesus himself, as an ascended master,
Mhm.
had many of those healing gifts.
Yes, exactly that. And that's the inspiration for Reiki, Jesus, the laying on hands, that's essentially Reiki and the healing
Yeah,
power of Reiki.
yeah. So let
Mhm.
your light shine, everyone who's listening,
That's exactly right. And I
watching.
actually, when I was preparing to come on this podcast, I made myself a note to talk about your divine light as your personal power, that we all have that divine light. And oftentimes in this world, when it can feel like
Mhm.
there's darkness and there is constriction and contraction and pushing from every side, tapping into our own power so that we are um, lighting up and expanding and sparking that in others too. And that will just cause the darkness to flee because there's nowhere for it to go anymore.
Yeah, something else I'd love to touch with you on as well, that we were chatting about briefly before we started our conversation here today, is about the energies and the collective and what we're also feeling individually right now. I'd love for you to share your thoughts on that.
Yes, I definitely sense that there is a lot of chaotic energy in the collective and a massive shift is happening. I certainly don't have all the answers, but I feel that now is the time for us as spiritual leaders to step forward and to join together in community. We have the power. We don't need to look to other people for the power. And we can use our gifts, our individual gifts together to really, again, create the world that we're looking for, that we hope to see, where we are taking care of the earth and we're taking care of each other and we're not destructive. We're not just funding massive wars and creating poverty and hunger, because the way our system is set up right now, that's exactly what it's creating. We don't have to follow those ways that have been followed for hundreds of years. We can change that. And what does that look like for us? How can we start to prepare and be the healing warriors who are based in love and not fear?
Yeah, I love that you acknowledge that, because now is precisely the time in history. I mean, if you're a light worker, you're here right now and you're feeling called to forge a path that you don't see happening out there, that's precisely the thing, that you're being guided to do. It just means that you have a role here to support others in forging a new path that helps to enhance our evolution, to improve, and develop more sustainable ways and systems of living and being. So that obviously goes the opposite of the largely inverted society that we live in, that pretty much tells you the opposite. Especially, I come from a generation, I'm dating myself right now, I'm sure, but I come from a generation where the belief was largely that, hey, if you are, you stay at the same job for 30 years, that's
Mhm.
great. If it's not broken, don't fix it, type of thing. You got to kind of throw all of that out the window.
Yes.
And I think an important part of knowing what your truth feels like in your body is recognizing your soul's guidance, right? And how that comes through, because you are going to continue to receive a lot of messages or signs that aren't going to feel logical.
Yes, that is very true. And it's so important to trust our intuition, to trust the messages. I remember when I was doing Reiki for someone relatively early on in my journey. And as I was hovering my hands near her ankle, I got this message that to me did not make any sense. So afterward, I told her, I was getting a message near your ankle. I don't know what that means. And she said, oh, well, I had a tattoo on my ankle in memory of my friend who passed away. And it was for her. It was a message for her. And
Hmm.
I didn't see that. I mean, she was wearing jeans that covered it. So, but if I hadn't trusted myself and told her what was coming to me for her, then we wouldn't have made that connection. And I wouldn't have had the validation that, yes, spirit is working through me and offering me wisdom.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this journey isn't for the faint of heart, you know, so
That's for sure. You can say that again. It's kind of exhausting sometimes.
right. And I would be remiss if I wasn't open in saying that I know I've experienced it in the past, and I'm sure many other light workers have as well, you know, that it might just feel easier at times to go back to sleep. But
Yeah.
there really is no going back. Once you're on the path and once you're awake to that, there really is only the path.
Yes.
What
Mhm.
what would be your number one piece of advice for others who are listening to, stay steadfast on
Yes.
the path?
My number one piece of advice would be to ensure that you're meditating every day. And then also not just looking at meditation as an escape from the world. I think that's really key. I used to often feel like, okay, I just need to go within so I can get away from my reality. I just need to keep meditating longer and longer until maybe if I open my eyes, things will be different. But that's not really how it works. If you think of like two sides of a zipper going together and you're zipping it up, you don't have to keep the mindfulness and the feeling of the meditation, the reverence separate from the rest of your life. You can figure out how to incorporate that into your daily living, whether it's lighting a candle or having crystals at your desk or however you prefer to do that. But don't forget to listen to your inner voice, because if you don't do that, it will be so much easier to get swept away in what everyone else wants you to do and to just fall into the people pleasing.
Yeah, I love that you're just hitting on all the perfect points here. People pleasing, that's a big one too.
Yes.
Um, when I was initially on the first kind of phase of the transition in terms of changing careers and whatnot, I had this realization that I didn't really know who I was. And so it's like I embarked on this journey of rediscovering myself, because pretty much everything I was doing was because it was pleasing someone else. And that's how I had been defining myself. Had you experienced that on your path as well?
Yes, that is exactly right. I definitely went through all from start to finish how I went through that as a child and then into adulthood, that I thought that because I grew up in an abusive household that I should be a wallflower and that my voice didn't matter. But then as I went through my journey of self-love, I realized that's completely false, completely ridiculous. My voice does matter, and I have so much to give to the world. My voice is such a treasure, and it would be so sad if I didn't share that with the world. And I think that is the same for everybody. If you are coming from a place of love, a place of authenticity for the greatest good, you should share your voice and be true to yourself. I think the world is just going to be a much better place if everyone does that. And you don't have to worry about one person outshining the other. We can all shine together.
Yeah, everybody's unique.
Yes, exactly.
Absolutely. I love that so much. I often envision, I see humanity, the collective, as just like this big quilt, interwoven with all of these unique threads.
Yes,
It's
beautiful.
so cool how we're all unique, but we're all connected at the same
Yes,
time.
like a big tapestry. Yeah.
Yes.
Hmm.
It gets me excited.
Me too.
You know what? I'm feeling guided to let's play with some oracle cards, because we were talking about that
Excellent.
before, and it feels like a great time to do that.
Yeah, so I have a couple of decks here, and I'm going to at least do this one reading from messages from your animal spirit guides, because we were talking about nature. This is a deck from Stephen D. Farmer. This was one of the first decks that I ever bought. And when I became, well, actually, when I was attuned to Reiki level 1, my Reiki teacher, she actually did a reading for me from this deck. So I'm going to go ahead, and if anyone listening wants to center and ground, you can close your eyes and take some deep breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth. And I'm calling upon the angels and spirit guides for a message for the greatest good. And I'm going to go ahead and shuffle the deck.
Thank you also for being descriptive for those who are listening and not seeing us on YouTube.
You're welcome. Yeah, I realize that not everyone will be able to see this. Okay, and so I have the cards face down, and I'm going to go ahead and choose them with my eyes closed. And I feel a lot of excitement. I often will feel like, is this going to be a heavy reading, or this reading feels like playful and childlike and excited, like
Yay.
like my guides want to jump up and down and share this.
Love it.
All right. So the first card, it's wonderful. It's Zebra. And it says, let go of your fear and know that you are safe and protected at all times. This is exactly what we were talking about. We are not alone. We are so protected and guided. We're supported by the earth. We're supported by all the spiritual beings that we cannot see. Our ancestors, our guides, our angels. We're definitely not alone. And I just feel like right now they're like a cheerleading squad, and they're saying, this is your time. This is your time to shine. And for you to create something so brand new that you will actually really enjoy your new life so much more. It will be so freeing for you.
Love that.
And yeah, so we may, go through dark periods of time, but on the other side, outside of the cocoon, outside of the transformation of the caterpillar into the butterfly, we are experiencing such a higher vibe reality. And the next card goes right along with that. It's unicorn. Indulge your creative, imaginative, and magical side through some form of artistic expression. So this is a beautiful card, the glowing unicorn. And one thing that's really important in this message is, yes, using your creativity, and it will allow you to be a conduit for the divine. So however you choose to express that, that will help you with any residual fear that you might have. And that may even help you in your visualization if you're trying to envision what do you want your future to look like? What is your ideal life? And next is Emu. This is a good time to go on a new adventure. I definitely think that we are headed into a new adventure.
For sure.
Yes. And so that one's pretty straightforward. The next card is Walrus. Remain vigilant about the current situation. Pay attention to signs and omens and let them dictate your choices. So right now, angels and spirit guides are saying that there may be multiple ways that you receive messages throughout the day. You just may not be aware of it. So it could be like the sound of a door closing or a car going by, anything. Like, try not to think about receiving the messages in a typical way, like you and I talking. It may not be delivered like that. It may not even be like a whisper in your heart or however it comes to you. So be open to listening to and experiencing all of the ways you can receive the messages, because you're being, again, it's like this big cheerleading squad, and they are just like, you can do this. This is exactly why you came here. Why are you so worried? Like, this is what you're here for.
Yes. I feel like we're at the, when you get to the top of the roller coaster and it's right when you're about ready to go down, it's like, put your arms up. Just let go.
Exactly. Get ready, because you're going for a ride.
Going for a big ride.
A big old ride.
I love that so much. Oh my gosh, I could talk to you for days.
Yeah, so just to wrap up with the reading, I see a lot of like glowy colors, like blue. So definitely making sure to spend some time by water, and using water, like taking a hot bath or a hot shower, self-soothing, doing these things to care for yourself during these very interesting times.
So awesome. Thank you so much. What a treat.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
So Rachel, in closing, what else are you feeling guided to bring forward?
Yeah, so I have a special promotion just for people listening to this podcast. You can't get it anywhere else. So if you listened all the way to this point, I'm going to ask you to please follow me on Instagram at author.rachel.merrill. So that's author.rachel.merrill. And then if you bought my book, I want you to send me a DM in Instagram and with a photo of the book in your hands, and send me your address. I'm going to personally do an oracle card reading for you for free. And I'm going to write the details in a card. I'm going to sign it and mail it to you. So you'll have my autograph and your own personal reading, but only for people who listen to this podcast.
Oh my gosh. I think that's just the most amazing and fun offer.
I wanted it to be fun. Yes.
Yeah,
definitely.
super fun. And the fact that you get to receive it in the mail too is just really cool.
Yeah, something tangible. And then you can say, I have the author's autograph and I got this reading and I didn't even have to pay for it. It's free.
Oh, so high vibe. I just love this. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
You're very welcome.
And we will have that info in the show notes as well, and any links. So if the listeners also want to just go to where my podcast info is and click there, you'll be able to do that too.
Yes, exactly. And my website is rachelmerrill.me. You can find all sorts of information, where to buy my book, and book services like oracle card readings, so much more.
Cool. Rachel, what an absolute, I don't know, it's just like a treat, and it's fun, and it was a joy. It was all of those things.
I'm so glad. I want to feel like a celebration, and spirit guides are still cheering.
Yeah, and you know what? it is a time for celebration. It's a time for celebration that we're moving into the next golden age. There's so much to celebrate. And it really just is an amazing, blessed time to be here.
Yeah, how lucky are we? Not everyone gets to say that they're here for this.
Right, exactly. We are, and it's amazing. Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you so much, Jennifer.
Thank you for listening to the Awaken on Purpose podcast. Please visit me and subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts or at awakenonpurpose.com so you never miss an episode. To learn more about how you can embody new levels of expansion in your purpose and mission as a visionary leader and way shower, visit me at jenniferspore.com.